American reconnaissance satellites orbit Earth 16 times per day, photographing every inch of the planet with resolution sharp enough to read license plates from space. But in February 2024, they detected something in India that didn't match any known category of infrastructure. What started as routine analysis turned into the most significant intelligence discovery of the decade, revealing a secret that challenges everything America thought it knew about global power. Meet David Chen, a 3-4-year-old analyst with the National Security Agency who spent his nights reviewing satellite imagery of South Asian infrastructure. After 6 years in the position, he developed almost mechanical efficiency. He could identify a new airport, a dam project, or a military installation within seconds. But at 3:47 a.m. on February 12, 2024, Chen noticed something that made him pause. The thermal imaging showed construction activity, but the heat signatures were emanating from approximately 200 feet underground. This wasn't unusual by itself. Underground metro systems and mining operations produced similar readings. What caught Chen's attention was the scale and the pattern. 47 separate locations across India, from Mumbai to Bangalore to New Delhi, all showing identical thermal profiles, all active simultaneously, all in areas with no publicly announced underground construction projects. Chen spent the next 16 hours cross-referencing everything he could find. According to MIT Technology Review's analysis published in March 2024, excavation permits for deep underground construction across 12 Indian states had increased by 340% compared to the previous decade. Yet there were no corresponding announcements of metro expansions, shopping complexes, or any civilian projects that would justify this level of activity. Ever notice how quickly India's infrastructure seems to appear? One year a city has traffic chaos, the next it has a functioning metro system that would take Western nations a decade to build? What Chen discovered was that much of India's most significant construction happens where satellites can't easily observe it. Beneath the surface, away from public scrutiny, India has been building something unprecedented. Hit subscribe now, because what we're about to reveal will completely change how you see global power. Trust me, the next discovery gets even more disturbing. By April 2024, intelligence agencies had deployed additional resources to understand the scope of India's underground network. The findings were staggering. Analysis revealed 847 miles of underground tunnels connecting 23 major Indian cities. To put that in perspective, the entire London Underground system spans 250 miles. India had built more than 3 times that length in near total secrecy. This is where we need to talk about Priya Sharma, a civil engineer with 15 years of experience who joined what she was told was Section 7 of the Pune Metro Expansion Project in January 2023. The pay was exceptional, nearly double what similar projects offered, and the work seemed straightforward. Expand the existing metro line by 12 kilometers, add 4 new stations, integrate with the existing network. But 3 months in, Sharma noticed inconsistencies that troubled her. The tunnel specifications called for walls reinforced with 3 feet of concrete mixed with composite materials she'd never encountered in civilian construction. The depths, at 180 feet below ground level, was far deeper than any metro system required. Most concerning were the junction points where her section connected to tunnels that definitely weren't part of any metro system. These connecting passages had security protocols that prevented her team from accessing them, and the few glimpses she caught showed military-grade blast doors and ventilation systems designed for extended underground habitation. In August 2023, Sharma resigned. She couldn't reconcile what she was building with what she'd been told. In a conversation with a journalist that was never published due to government pressure, Sharma described her growing realization that her metro project was actually part of a massive bunker network designed to protect critical government functions in the event of nuclear war. The Journal of Strategic Studies published an analysis in December 2023 that confirmed her suspicions. Researchers analyzing India's import patterns discovered the country had imported 340,000 tons of specialized radiation shielding materials between 2021 and 2023, These materials have limited civilian applications but are essential for constructing facilities designed to withstand nuclear, biological, or electromagnetic pulse attacks. The quantities imported were sufficient to shield approximately 15 million square feet of underground space. If your government was building this in secret, would you want to know why? Some experts argue this is purely defensive infrastructure, a reasonable precaution for a nation of 1.4 billion people living between two nuclear-armed rivals. But the scale and sophistication suggest something far more comprehensive than bomb shelters. But the tunnels weren't the most terrifying part. What's inside them is, by May 2024, American signals intelligence had detected something that elevated concern to a completely different level. James Rodriguez, a technology analyst with the Pentagon's Defense Innovation Unit, was reviewing electromagnetic spectrum data from Indian facilities when he noticed signal patterns that shouldn't exist. Rodriguez has spent 12 years analyzing military technology deployments worldwide. He tracked China's hypersonic missiles, Russia's electronic warfare advances, and dozens of other nations' attempts to acquire threatening capabilities. But the signals coming from India's underground facilities represented something he'd never encountered. The processing patterns suggested AI systems making autonomous decisions at speeds approximately 40% faster than the most advanced American defense AI, which itself was still largely in testing phases. The breakthrough came when Rodriguez's team intercepted encrypted communications in May 2024 referencing something called Project Shakti. Further analysis revealed that Project Shakti involved testing of autonomous weapon systems designed to operate in contested environments where traditional command and control might be compromised or severed entirely. Defense Technology Review published findings in July 2024, confirming that India's quantum computing facilities had achieved computational capabilities rivaling China's most advanced systems. More significantly, these quantum computers were being purpose-built for military applications. The financial data supported this. India's defense AI budget had increased by 890% between 2020 and 2024. Rodriguez describes the moment of realization with professional detachment, but the implications clearly unsettled him. We'd been seeing these 47 sites as separate facilities. But when we analyzed the signal coordination between sites, we realized we weren't looking at 47 separate facilities. We were looking at one distributed system that could operate as a single coordinated network. Remember how quickly India launched its Chandrayaan-3 moon mission? The spacecraft landed successfully on the lunar South Pole, making India only the fourth nation to achieve a soft landing and the first to reach that particular region. The mission's success came from sophisticated engineering and autonomous systems that could make critical decisions without real-time human input. That same capability, but weaponized and distributed across an underground network that can survive almost any attack, represents a paradigm shift. The systems are designed with terrifying autonomy. If surface communications are severed through electromagnetic pulse weapons, physical destruction, or cyber attacks, the underground facilities can continue operating independently. They can assess threats, coordinate responses, and execute operations without requiring human authorization for every decision. Yet, even this wasn't what truly alarmed American strategists. The technology represented a significant advancement, but technology alone doesn't reshape global power structures. What transformed India's underground network from impressive to world-changing was its economic dimension. By November 2024, financial intelligence analysts had discovered that several of India's underground data centers were processing approximately 34% of global digital payment transactions. This is where we meet Sarah Mitchell, an American fintech executive who spent 12 years building payment infrastructure for Asian markets. By 2023, her systems were handling $47 billion in annual transaction volume, with relationships across 17 countries. In September 2024, Mitchell's world collapsed. 5 of her largest clients, representing more than 60% of her revenue, informed her they will be switching to a new transaction processing system developed by India's National Payments Corporation. The new system offered processing fees 60% lower than what Mitchell could provide, while maintaining the same security standards and actually improving transaction speeds. Mitchell initially assumed this was temporary, something she could counter. But as she investigated, she realized she was facing something unprecedented. The Indian payment rails represented a completely different approach to financial infrastructure. The International Monetary Fund published a report in October 2024 that explained why Mitchell and dozens of other Western fintech companies were suddenly facing existential threats. India's digital rupee infrastructure had created a system that bypassed dollar-based settlement entirely. Countries using this infrastructure could trade with each other, process transactions, and settle accounts without ever touching the dollar-denominated financial system that had been the backbone of global commerce since World War II. By early 2025, 89 countries were testing integration with India's payment infrastructure. For most of these nations, particularly in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, the appeal was obvious. Lower transaction costs, faster settlement times, and most importantly, reduced dependence on American financial institutions that could impose sanctions based on US foreign policy. This wasn't just technology. This was financial sovereignty, processed in underground facilities that could survive electromagnetic pulses, nuclear attacks, or any disruption that might take down surface infrastructure. The underground servers can process 450,000 transactions per second. To put that in perspective, Visa's global network handles approximately 65,000 transactions per second at peak capacity. India has built processing capabilities 7 times larger, all protected in facilities designed to survive scenarios that would destroy conventional data centers. Some economists argue this creates healthy competition, forcing established players to improve services and reduce costs. There's merit to this. But there's a darker interpretation that troubles Western policymakers. Every time you use your credit card, there's an increasing chance the transaction routes through systems America can't monitor, regulate, or shut down. For a nation that has used financial surveillance and sanctions as primary foreign policy tools for decades, this represents a fundamental loss of leverage. For Mitchell, the story has an unexpected ending. After her company closed in mid-2025, she pivoted entirely. She now consults for financial institutions trying to adapt to the new multipolar payment landscape, helping them integrate with Indian, Chinese, and other alternative systems. Her income is actually higher, though she admits the work feels strange. I spent my career building systems that reinforce dollar dominance. Now I help companies escape it. But there's one facility that stands apart from all the others. Intelligence analysts refer to it simply as Site 1. Located beneath Bengaluru, Site 1 spans approximately 1.2 million square feet, roughly the size of 22 American football fields, all of it deep enough underground to survive even bunker-busting weapons. The source of information must remain anonymous, so we'll refer to him as K, a CIA analyst who saw partial reporting about Site 1 in November 2024. What he read troubled him enough that he began his own analysis. The energy consumption patterns were what gave it away, Kay explains. Site 1 draws approximately 340 megawatts of power continuously. That's enough electricity to power 250,000 homes. But there's no corresponding above-ground activity that would justify that level of power consumption. Thermal imaging shows temperature variations suggesting massive cooling systems operating underground. Whatever is generating that much heat requires industrial-scale air conditioning. Nature Physics published a paper by Indian researchers in August 2024 detailing breakthrough work on room temperature superconductors. The paper described materials that could conduct electricity with zero resistance at normal temperatures. If verified, this will represent one of the most significant physics discoveries in a century. The paper was retracted within 72 hours, with the journal citing government security concerns. The authors, all affiliated with Indian government research institutions, were prohibited from discussing their work publicly. Kay's assessment is sobering. We're looking at energy signatures we can't explain with known technology. The power consumption is consistent with either advanced nuclear research, breakthrough energy generation, or computing systems operating at scales we didn't think were currently possible. Imagine if one country suddenly had unlimited clean energy whilst everyone else still fought over oil. Imagine if one country achieved quantum computing capability that could break encryption, protecting everything from banking to military communications. The alternative explanation is that Site 1 is simply a massive supercomputing facility for civilian AI research. But even this benign explanation troubles strategists. It would be a secret supercomputer capable of training AI systems beyond what American facilities can achieve. And here's what keeps Pentagon analysts awake at night. The construction patterns that characterize India's underground facilities have appeared in 7 other countries since 2022. Vietnam, the United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Kenya, and Brazil all show identical excavation signatures. Same depths, same thermal profiles, same security protocols. All of these countries have received substantial infrastructure loans from India. All of them have strengthened ties with New Delhi. And all of them are now building underground facilities using what appears to be Indian expertise, technology, and possibly financing. General Thomas Bradford retired from the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command in 2023 after 30 years monitoring military developments across Asia. When he saw the satellite evidence of coordinated underground construction across multiple countries in January 2025, he recognized something his successors in active service were slower to grasp. This isn't military alliance building in the traditional sense, Bradford explains. India isn't asking these countries to host military bases or commit troops. Instead, they're sharing capability. They're helping partner nations build infrastructure that makes them more resilient, more independent, and less vulnerable to coercion. It's alliance building through shared technological sovereignty. Between 2022 and early 2025, India disbursed $127 billion in infrastructure loans to developing nations. But the focus differs from China's Belt and Road Initiative. Rather than building infrastructure that connects recipient countries to Chinese supply chains, India is building infrastructure that enhances the recipient country's own defensive and economic capabilities. The Arms Control Association published analysis in February 2025 documenting technology transfer patterns that align with the underground construction programs. India has shared civil engineering expertise, provided training for local construction firms, and transferred sophisticated tunneling technology. Unlike China's projects, which typically rely on Chinese companies and workers, India's approach emphasizes building local capability. Bradford's assessment carries weight precisely because he spent his career advocating for American military presence in Asia. He recognizes sophisticated strategy when he sees it. While America was building military bases that cost billions to maintain and created resentment, India was building something harder to see and impossible to stop. They're creating a network of nations with shared infrastructure that doesn't depend on any external power for its survival. Bradford now advises several think tanks on adapting to multipolar power structures. His recommendations consistently emphasize the need for the United States to shift from coercive diplomacy to genuine partnership. Whether his advice will be heeded remains to be seen. So what does this mean for the future? The satellite discoveries that began with David Chen's routine scan have revealed far more than underground construction. They've exposed a fundamental shift in how power operates in the international system. India has built a parallel infrastructure that exists beyond American oversight, operates according to rules India wrote, and provides capabilities that make nations less dependent on traditional centers of global power. This isn't about fear of Indian aggression. India remains a democracy with strong institutions and competitive elections. The real significance is what India's underground network represents as a model for other nations. Global power is no longer about who has the most aircraft carriers. It's about who controls the infrastructure that underpins modern civilization. Payment systems, data centers, energy networks, communication infrastructure. These are the foundations of power in the 21st century. David Chen left the National Security Agency in late 2024. he now works as an independent consultant, providing analysis to think tanks, corporations, and foreign governments. His skills are worth more in the private sector, and his perspective is valued precisely because he understands both what America can see and what remains hidden. Chen's career trajectory mirrors a broader shift. The talent that once flowed exclusively toward government intelligence agencies increasingly moves to private analysis. This brain drain is itself a symptom of declining American capacity to understand a more complex world. Here's what I want to know. Would you rather live in a world dominated by one superpower's rules, or one where multiple nations have the capability to write their own? Because India just proved the second option is already here. The underground facilities, the payment networks, the shared technology with partner nations, all of it demonstrates that the era of uncontested American dominance has ended not with dramatic confrontation, but with quiet construction that happened whilst most people weren't paying attention. Drop your answer in the comments. And if this analysis opened your eyes to something the mainstream media won't cover, subscribe so you don't miss our next investigation. Because trust me, Beijing satellites have been watching India too, and what they're planning is even more ambitious. The world just became considerably more interesting.